again. We are recording this meeting, and I think we'll have it available for folks who weren't able to be with us today. We'll also be sending out all of the information that we share, including the slides, after this meeting and later on today. So I am going to go ahead and start sharing those slides. And I'm looking at my other monitor over here. So that's why I'm looking off into the distance. If you could please rename yourselves so we know who is here, that would be wonderful. Here are a few instructions. I know many people are familiar with Zoom, but if not, you just click your participants button and hover over your name to rename yourself with you and your organizations and your preferred pronouns if you choose. We also have the chat function activated for you all, so you can pop those questions that come up in the chat. We might not be able to answer all of them today, but we'll make sure that we do get answers to all of your questions that you do put in the chat this morning. And with that, we'll kick it off. Today we are talking about data reporting and the data reporting that you all will be required to do as part of participation in Measure 110. And a big thanks to our data team, Emily and Anne, for helping put all of this information together for you all today. They truly are the wizards and the brains behind all of this great information. So today we are going to discuss data reporting, how you will submit reporting the data that you collect, some of those requirements, overview some of the basic demographic data that you'll all be required to collect, and some next steps. Again, all of your lines should be muted, so put any questions into the chat, and if we can't answer them today, we will make sure that we get back to you following today's session. And we will send out these materials, these slides, and some other materials later today. So again, the purpose of today is to describe the reporting requirements for phase 1 of your burns. I think we kind of briefly touched on this in a lot of your welcome meetings, but we are proposing a phased approach to data collection, recognizing that for some of you, this is all very, very brand new work. And we want to make sure that we build data collection and reporting processes that really will guide you all to success and not put too much of a burden on you all as you're just getting started. You will be required to submit data, client level data through a secure online form. The link to that form will be emailed out to all of you before the end of this quarter, so before the end of the month. This TA session is designed to explain what we will be expecting from you all when submitting the phase 1 reports. The first report will be due January 15th and will cover data collected from the beginning of your grant agreements, which is July 1st, through the end of the current quarter, or September 30th. The second report will be due April 15th and will cover data collected from October 1st through December 31st. And, I think we recognize that first report might be a little bit lean. since some of you are just getting started and maybe haven't collected all of this data going backwards in time, especially if you were just approved by the Oversight and Accountability Council. As I've mentioned a few times before, data reporting will be implemented in a phased approach over this first year of the award. So today we are only focusing on phase 1, and throughout the rest of this calendar year, 2022, we will only be asking for phase 1 data. All approved partners, regardless of when you were approved by the Oversight and Accountability Council, must meet the program-wide reporting deadlines. As I mentioned, a link to that secure online reporting tool will be emailed out to all of you prior to the end of this quarter or the end of the month. And you can forward that link as you need for report completion. For burn partners who are providing multiple services within a county, you do need to report aggregated data broken down by service area. So, for example, if you are providing both peer services and housing, we will need your data broken down by each of those service areas so that we can see how many clients you're serving through your peer program and how many clients you're serving through your housing offerings. For burn partners that provide services in multiple counties, you will also need to submit one report per county. So we can see if you're, for example, approved in both Jackson and Josephine counties, what you are, who you're serving in Jackson County and who you're serving in Josephine County. So there are 4 main data reporting requirements for phase 1. First of all, the number of individuals that you serve, how many clients that you see in that quarterly period. We also want to know the number of individuals that were either denied services or not connected to services for whatever reason. We don't need to have that in granular level of the why, but just if there are folks that came to you and couldn't access services for whatever reason. We also want to know the number of services that you have provided in your communities. And then finally, some basic client demographic data so that we can start getting a clear picture of really who you are serving within your communities. I will say that all of this information is, we recognize that it might be a big lift for some of you. So we are here to help you troubleshoot or brainstorm how to best collect this information, especially depending on the type of services you're providing. Some of it might be a little easier to collect than other pieces. All of the reporting documents that you create or fill out do have a required retention period for a minimum of 6 years, and that is in Oregon statute. So I think out of these 4 categories, I want to drill down just into the basic client demographic bucket the most, because that is kind of the most expansive of what we are requiring. And this is really to start paving the way for you all to report race, ethnicity, language, and sexual orientation and gender identity information, or the Real D and SOG information. This isn't the full Real D and SOG information, but this again is kind of getting you to that point. And it includes kind of a big bucket of race and ethnicity, very basic race and ethnicity information, gender identity information, and age. And I think we all recognize that depending on the type of service you're providing, it might be a little uncomfortable to ask this information, or people that you interact with might not want to provide this information. While you should ask, clients don't have to give you answers for this. And if someone says, I don't want to provide this information, you can still serve them. This shouldn't be a barrier to accessing services. And our hope is that over time, you're building the relationships and the trust in your community so that people do feel comfortable answering these questions and knowing that their information will be kept confidential and that they'll still be able to access services that you are providing. So this is really designed to be kind of a on-ramp towards reporting the full REALD and SOGI information, but we don't want it to be a barrier for people to access care. And in the online survey that we do, or online reporting tool that we will eventually send out, all of these will be broken down into categories that you can input the number of people. So if you're collecting this via a paper system or a clipboard system or a tablet system, depending on kind of where you're at in providing services, if you're in the community, if you're at a center, if you're at a housing location, it can all be kind of collated and then reported via that tool. So I know that that is a lot and a little overwhelming, but we want to just put it out there so that you can sit with it and think about it. And again, we'll send out all this information. We'll also send you a sample survey document that you can use to prepare for data reporting. So you'll be able to see all of the questions that will be asked and can start thinking and planning for how you're going to collect and report this information to us. Again, that link to the secure online reporting tool will be emailed to you all before the end of this quarter or this month. And you can forward that link to if you have a data person or someone on your team that's helping with this as needed. We will be hosting another TA session, I think walking through that reporting tool and detailing more of the reporting submission instructions later or in the near future. And again, all of this will be not due until January 15th for services provided from July 1st through September 30th. And then April 15th for services provided October 1st through December 31st. So I think, we want to recognize that that first report might be a little lean, and hopefully we'll start getting more robust data for the second report. We also want to hear from you and hear what future topics you might have for technical assistance. If you have suggestions or just general questions concerning your specific grant agreement, you can email our Measure 110 inbox at m110.grants@odhsoha.oregon.gov. And we will make sure that someone on the team gets back to you and take any suggestions for future sessions back to think about and bring back to you all. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and take a little peek in the chat to see if there are any questions that I am able to answer at this time. Have a question from Theresa from Bay Area First Step. a little sidestep from data reporting, but Teresa asked if there are any guidelines or instructions when it comes to speaking with the media. And the answer to that question is no. We really want you to be able to talk about your programs and your communities in a way that really represents what you're doing. And we don't have any strict guidelines or instructions when it comes to media. We really want that to be coming from you all and representative of the work that you do. That's a good question. Another question from Tabitha from New Avenues for Youth, who asked, when should we expect responses to emailed questions sent to the M110 email address over the past 2 weeks? And I think the answer to that question is soon. I know that I'll admit that some of that choke point is me. They're sitting in my inbox to answer. I am getting to them this afternoon, I promise. And we will try to get those questions and those answers out to you soon, depending on the complexity of the question. Sometimes we have to take them back to the group for groupthink and hivethink. So it just takes a little bit longer. So we just appreciate your patience. Bonnie from Healing Veins asked, we didn't get funded until August and aren't really starting until the end of September. We will probably only have 2 sessions in September. So it's not a question of not having collected the data. It's more about having begun. And I think we recognize that, especially for programs that were just maybe approved last week by the Oversight and Accountability Council. On August 31st, that's only really a month of being funded. So we recognize that first report is gonna be a little bit lean, and understand that it's gonna be maybe more starting these services than actually not collecting data. Brittany Rain, I think you're from CORE. Memory serves correctly. This is a fun memory game for me. Wanted to know when the fixed budget templates would come out. I believe they are coming out soon. I know we told you August 31st, but we're still making some final tweaks, so very, very soon. James Reinhardt asked if the data collection is going to be different from a KIPRA report that the federal government uses for data collection. I'm not familiar with the KIPRA acronym or the KIPRA report, but I'm guessing it will be, since we designed it, but that is a question that I think we're going to have to take back, or that I will have to take back to the group. I think we might be asking similar questions, but perhaps in a different format. But that's one we can follow up with you on. Oh, Christine, this is a good question. You did email me about this. I think one question that I have, I think, talked to you a lot about is kind of who out of the universe of clients are you reporting on, right? Because many of you are maybe already serving people, and is everyone you serve eligible for being tagged as kind of a Measure 110 client, or is it just people that come through that Class E violation pathway? And you definitely shouldn't limit the scope of who you're reporting on just based on Class E violations. I think we really would like to capture a good picture of who is being served by you all across the state. And so, I think our guidance has kind of been to take a pretty expansive approach to reporting. So, really any of the SUD clients that you are serving, I think you can kind of claim as Measure 110 clients, because we really want to be able to see who's being served, who's being left behind. And I think that picture will really help us drill down on those who is being left behind or who isn't maybe accessing services bucket, and think about how we can reach those folks. And so I would urge a more expansive kind of universe of who you're reporting on, including all clients that you serve through your approved M110 activities. I hope that made sense, but happy to expand upon that in a future FAQ. And Mark asked if Medicaid was billed to include them in the number of individuals, and I would say yes, especially if if you're billing Medicaid, but folks are still being served at your facility or through your outreach efforts. Absolutely. Christy Albertson asked if there are specific questions related to basic demographic data. We want to make sure we're recording what you need, and I believe those questions will be in the information that we send out, the sample document and then the survey as well, so that you have exactly what we're needing. Miriam Parker asked for organizations that already provide SUD services that overlap with burn activities, such as service element 66 and 63. Should those be reported separately? And I'm not quite sure I understand that question. But if you are providing SUD services that overlap with burn activities, I would say yes, you should report those clients, but I'm not sure. That I think is a question that I'll make sure I take back to our experts. Shelly Rodriguez asked if it's the number of services provided per client or aggregate per service line. I'm thinking about that. It's per service line. So you won't necessarily report client A, here's their information, and here's their services. It's going to be more, here are the services we provided, and here is the individuals. It's A, B, and C, it's B and C, it's C and E. A kind of across service categories, not the individual level, if that makes sense. I'm sure there is a better way to say that as well that we can put in our FAQs. Let's see. Another question from Emmy. When you say reporting services, do you mean OHA funded services or a breakdown of specific services? It will be the Measure 110 service categories. So 24/7 screening, assessments, SUD treatment, peer services, harm reduction, housing, and supported employment, those categories. And Allison Noyce from CODA noted that treatment providers will need guidance on how to track and report services, such as reporting on only those who come in through a burn screening or assessment. And without more definition, it will be difficult to understand the M110 impact on access and treatment. Definitely note that, Allison, and we'll work on that guidance and offering a more clear answer on exactly who you attribute to these services and report on. think that's a common thread that I'm seeing. So we'll definitely work on that. And Kendall noted, you know, not sure if we should report on client data for services that aren't funded through our BHRN funds. And that's accurate. Yeah. I see Christine. I can't hear you, but I see your face. So I think that sounds like something that we will make sure that we make crystal clear in terms of exactly who you're attributing to and reporting on, knowing that you're serving a lot of people outside of Measure 110 activities. And that is definitely something that I think I'm hearing, and we will make sure that we get super crystal clear for you all. All right.
And Kristen, this is Britt. I'm getting some updates from program director that we're getting lots of good questions, and I think we're going to end up taking the second half of these offline and responding to those via the inbox and then updating the FAQ. So maybe if we want to use the remainder of the time just to get those questions in the chat, and then we will be sure to get those answered.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think noticing, kind of scrolling through, it looks like a lot of the questions are just about how we're attributing folks. And that is definitely something that we'll make sure we're super clear on. And that we get back to you all, because I think that's a really important piece in how we set you all up for success. All right, well, with that, I think I'll just give the chat a few minutes for folks to make sure that you get any questions in. Leaving that open for a little bit. And if you do have questions, you can definitely send an email again to m110.grants at odhsoha.oregon.gov. And that way we can capture all of these, we are recording the chat, and make sure that we include them in our future FAQs. And I just want to note, comment that I think I've seen this a few times, just, recognizing that asking some of these questions in some of the service categories, especially harm reduction, is a little bit tricky, and we recognize that. And so, I think we're really want to be sensitive to the fact that we want to make sure that these services truly are low barrier. And I want to emphasize that for folks that don't want to answer the demographic information, that should be totally fine, and you should be able to continue to provide them services. I think in using your best judgment in how to do that. And just briefly to note, Basilio, we will be sending out the templates for reporting, and those periods are report 1 to cover July 1st through September 30th, and report 2 to cover October 1 through December 31st, and those will be sent to you later this month. All right, well, it looks like the questions are starting to slow down a little bit. As much as we all love looking at each other. Maybe we can wrap this up in another 2 minutes or so you get a little bit of time in your day back before you have to jump to the rest of your, what I'm sure are very busy Thursdays. Again, if you do think of questions, especially once we email all this information out to you, please email our inbox. I think just kind of looking at the chat, I think we have some good ideas of where we need to make sure we focus on and be really super clear in terms of what our expectations are. And we will have another follow-up session specifically on data that we can walk through some of those questions. Tabitha, I see your note that it would be helpful to have the opportunity for interactive conversations. And I think I definitely agree with that. I think we're hoping to eventually kind of parse down into some smaller sessions. It's really hard to have a good interactive conversation with so many people. And so I think we're hoping to eventually get to a place where we're having some smaller breakout sessions to make sure that we can have those meaningful conversations. But as always, please email the inbox, and if we don't get an email response to you, sometimes just picking up the phone and having a call with y'all to clarify is easy too. And you know that I've had a lot of those conversations with you over time, and so I'm happy to continue those as long as you are all not sick of me quite yet. You might be, but that's what I'm here for. So happy to continue to be supportive for you all. All right. Well, I think we all have our homework and a lot of good next steps for us and our team to tackle. So we appreciate you spending some time with us today, asking these questions, putting your observations in the chat. Is really helpful for us just to know where we need to think a little bit more on. I hope you all have a really great rest of your Thursday and rest of your week. As always, please email the Measure 110 inbox and stay in touch. Thank you all. Take care.